I am Marcus with That Nerd Show. Welcome to our studio, and we are speaking with the cast and the filmmakers behind Wild-Eyed and Wicked. And thank you, Stephanie, Michael, and Gordon for joining us. And I'm sorry I don't.
It's Elizabeth.
Elizabeth. That's right. I got an email about that.
Oh yeah, she just jumped in.
So, very interesting film. Is definitely our audience. So I've got quite a few questions, and I'm going to start with Gordon. Since you're the writer and director, how did you come up with this idea?
It was whispered to me in the night by aliens. No, let's see. So it kind of came from a lot of different places. I could kind of, it can be sort of a long, almost laborious answer going through all the things over all the years, but
Sure.
in shortest form, I talk about it's always been interesting to me how clearly, dark fantasy, medieval fantasy is still such a huge part of culture, even though,
Yeah.
we're such a different world now. So clearly we're drawn to that as modern people for different reasons, psychological, etc. And I was curious if you had a modern story about someone that feels drawn to all of that to fight something and fight back against something. What would that be like? And how would that be intimate and interesting and mano a mano? So yeah.
Well, it's an interesting metaphor on fighting your inner demons and very creative. So, Stephanie, you get the pleasure of playing somebody good and somebody bad in this film, kind of a dual role.
Yes.
So I have this is a two-part question for you. Do you find it more fun to kind of be bad or be good as an actress?
Be bad.
Okay. Kind of a rhetorical question. Bad's always a little bit more fun, but
Yeah. Michael and I were talking about this the other day, like, especially on a horror film set, like it's the one place in the world where you're like, if you ran out into the street and started screaming and frothing at the mouth, people would be like, please return to your home. Do not do that. But on a horror film set, you are applauded and, told, let's do it again.
right.
Maybe.
Well, also too, you get to work with fantastic makeup. And they did a really great job in making you into a demon woman slash mother and all that. Have you gotten to work with a lot of prosthetics and doing a makeup like that before?
I've done it a couple of times, but this was the first time where I really got to do the prosthetics and character makeup, and then incorporate my own stunts into it, which was a
Right.
unique challenge, but super super fun.
All right. Well, this question is for Stephanie and Michael. What drew you to these roles?
Well,
Michael,
I
I'll
was
go with you.
sure. Thank you. Yeah, well, I really was drawn to what would we call it? The complications. Like you said
Right.
to Stephanie, do you want to be a bad character or a good character? And well, ultimately, you want to be both.
Right.
And I feel like there was sort of an opportunity there with Gregory, the father, in the
Yeah.
character who starts out all depressed and he's trying to make it up to his daughter and he's failing miserably
Right.
but I think I don't want to spoil it, but I think there's some redemption going on with the father, so that was great.
Well, I was commenting on this with the woman who on our staff who's going to be doing the review of the movie that you are the Obi-Wan character of this movie. You are the older, kind of wise, sets the hero off on her path, so to speak, towards the end. So
I think I falter a little bit more than Obi-Wan in my wisdom, or it takes me. I think more accurately, it takes me a little longer to get there. Would be my.
I'm not saying you're Alec Guinness Obi-Wan yet.
Oh, come on! I am so.
But no, I mean it's kind of true. I mean there is that duality with him as well as
Yeah.
something that you really don't like at the beginning of the film, but kind of redeems himself.
Yeah, that's gold for me. I love that sort of thing.
Yeah.
For you, I mean Stephanie, again, I mean what drew you to this role?
Oh, well, yeah, the same thing that Michael said, like a wonderfully complex character who was light and dark,
Yeah,
was this source of happiness and warmth for her daughter, but also a source of pain,
yeah,
um, deep, deep trauma. So obviously getting to play a character that complex was a thrill. And then I think the world that the characters got to exist in. This movie is not your run-of-the-mill horror film.
No.
It's got a real emotional grounding to it. It's a familial drama. It's a fantasy. So getting to play in a world that was more than one thing was really exciting and refreshing.
Also getting to learn how to use weapons.
Oh yeah.
I was just gonna say, what about action sequences? I forgot that part of it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's not every day you get a casting call for a movie like, you're going to have to learn swordplay.
Yeah, and while riding a horse, feeding a horse in my case.
Right.
We have a fun person right here.
Yeah, there she is.
Well, I thought this was kind of interesting that the main character, is a fencing coach. That's her profession. She already kind of has the tools, but doesn't really know how to kind of apply them. I mean, teaching is one thing, but to her world and the things that she is going to have to slay. So we try very hard not to give away spoilers, but I have to ask this question: is the ambiguous nature of the story? Because there's parts of it where you're like, is this real? Or is this how she is imagining fighting her own demons, the main character, and overcoming everything that she has had to overcome? And the same for the father. So, Gordon, this question is for you. Do you want to leave this ambiguous, or do you have a very clear idea of whether it's real or not?
Sure. I mean, I have my idea, and then there's the one that hopefully other people will jump in and feel their own ways, because that's all art, all storytelling is fantasy. Even a photograph is a fantasy because you can't freeze time. So the perceptions of reality. I mean, those are, even in your daily basis, there's always questions of perception and what is reality, etc. So yeah, it's fun to play with. It's fun to explore. Yeah, as we did. And again, it's a movie. So at the end of the day, it's all fake, and all movies are metaphors, which was something when I was kind of thinking about some of those questions too. The producer, Patrick Robert Young, that was what he said to me. He's like, all movies are metaphors, which I love.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking the movie's real, you probably have other issues, but so yeah, it's kind of play with it just as reality itself plays with it all.
Sorry about that. This is not a radio show. We are not taking calls. Speaking of, you borrow a lot of things from fantasy and folklore, and we did talk about a little bit about medieval fantasy and how popular it is and stuff. So this is a question for everybody. I feel like we're all fans of some kind of fantasy. We all have that one thing, whether we're drawn to more Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones or more anime or whatever. So as a fan, I want to ask everybody, what particular fantasy are you drawn to? What kind? And I'm going to start with Michael.
Uh-oh. What sort of fantasy? Well, that's historic is my first gut reaction. I'm like, I love it when they go back to a period in history and they don't really know what happened, so they're filling in the blanks and going off on a tangent somewhere. And if you have some flying animals, that's always good.
Sounds like somebody might have watched The Never-Ending Story here recently. Or Harry Potter. There are both. Stephanie, how about you? I mean, medieval fantasy, anime, is there something you are particularly drawn to?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Lord of the Rings, so I guess that's like, would that be medieval?
Yeah.
And then I think I'm also really into like the I don't know what the particular name of this genre is, but like historical fantasy, where like one thing in our historical line has changed, like Man in High Castle.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Like, Nazis won World War II. What is the world like now?
Wow, what a great reference on that one.
Yeah, or like
Huge.
like the Russians beat us in the space.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the series, but I read the book in college when I was on my Philip K. Dick, you know, uh, when I was reading a lot of his stuff. So
Yeah,
that
so
one's a really great one. Yeah.
historical fantasy interesting and compelling.
Okay. Gordon and Elizabeth, how about you?
My fantasy was to put my wife in armor and chainmail and make her fight and ride around on horses. So I made that one very much come true.
The nerds everywhere are like, we all have that fantasy.
I've made a movie out of it.
I grew up on Lord of the Rings, and I grew up on stories about
She was
Elizabeth.
ready.
Yeah,
Right.
Elizabeth the First riding out in front of the troops, and I was like, oh yeah, I can do
Tilbury.
that. He's not a problem. And yeah, it's a lot harder than it looks.
Right. For Michael and Stephanie, you guys have had interesting careers. Do you like more of the physical acting versus more of the still or just kind of dramatic? Do you feel like that's more fun to be able to do? So that's what draws you. There's certain roles.
I like it all. You know, I mean, I do like it all, but it is fun. It is fun to have the physical stuff, but it's also fun to really delve into somebody's psychology. So that's a hard one to, but really the answer is both, you know, and that's one of the things that was drawn to this is I feel I got to do a bit of both.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I was going to say that exact same thing, Michael. Like, yes, and it was such a treat that this project gave us those moments of like, sword fighting, tackling people in the woods, but then also rounded emotional moments.
Drama with how I screwed up my daughter, you know, that sort of thing.
Well, the hero's path, it takes many forms.
Yeah.
So again, you know, we don't want to, you know, give away spoilers and everything, but because we are dealing with fantasy and everything, you kind of leave it open-ended that, you know, she may not have completely slayed everything, that there's more to come. Do you feel like that there is a sequel that can be made out of this, or is this kind of a one-off?
Wild-Eyed and Wicked 2. But I want to put a comma and TOO.
Yeah.
Gordon's not answering. He's like,
Oh no! Yeah, no. There's no sequel to this.
Okay, all right.
That'd be no. This is it's correct as to be this just in here. Yeah.
Okay.
What if it blows up and they offer you $100 million for the sequel, Gordon? Then what do you do?
If I'm offered $100 million, I say, where do I sign? Blood? You know, what do you want?
See, that's what I'm saying.
You know, I've been a writer for 25 years, and there's a great writer's quote by Molière that I love saying about being an artist. And the quote goes, writing is like prostitution. At first you do it for yourself, then you do it for a few friends and family, but eventually you'll do it for money. It's a question of how much. All right. We have a very nerdy question that we're gonna ask here in a minute. But I also like to take the time for everybody to plug what they're doing next. So Michael, after this film, what can we see you in? What do you have?
Yeah, coming up is sometime soon. I don't have an opening date, but Freaky Tales.
Okay.
Which is gonna be really fun. It's about Oakland, California in 1987. We have 4 different stories. I play a bad guy in that, and I can't tell you too much more about that. And we got Guitar Man opening up later in the year.
Okay. Stephanie, how about you?
Yeah, I have a horror thriller that's hopefully coming out. I don't know the exact date, but later this year, called Decibel. It's about AI, which is cool. And then a Lifetime drama called The Sin Turn.
Oh.
All right. Gordon, how about you? What's your next project?
Oh, well, I've been, writing away, and I'm doing an epic fantasy novel too that no one can tell me the budget of, hooray. And of course, again, screenplays. And then Elizabeth, of course, is in a lot of ballets, and it's kind of where she got some of the whole strength and endurance for battling, but it's always like she's retired and they keep bringing her back. So always up next will be a new production. We're always in every like Nutcracker. And anyway,
that's the way it works. Well, I actually have a little bit of time, so I get to ask more than one nerdy question before we
Nice.
ready to go. Like I said, we're our audience are nerds, so anything fantasy that's what we're all about. And I really did enjoy the film. It was unique, and again, the great metaphor being able to conquer your own demons. So, all right, I'll start off with this nerdy question, something that we've been able to ask over the years. Would you rather? Now, for Gordon, this is about directing or writing. So, but for Stephanie and Michael, would you rather be in a Star Wars movie or series or Star Trek?
Oh man, that's Star Trek for me. That's. I mean, I love them. I love them both. But I'm sorry. I want to be hanging out with Jean-Luc Picard, and that would be my little niche in it.
Is that your favorite captain?
Yeah, absolutely. Jean-Luc Picard in the Next Generation that's my favorite part in there. But I mean, come on, if Kirk asked me to come on board, I would be beaming up.
they'd have you in some wacky alien makeup so fast, Michael.
They would.
Hey, the Borg are still out there. Let's face it.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Stephanie, how about you? Star Wars or Star Trek?
That's so hard. I'm gonna mix it up. I'm gonna do Star Wars. But also cross my fingers that like Michael, I will be put in some really intense alien makeup.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. And Gordon, would you whether
Stargate?
Wow. Okay.
Oh.
I mean, we'll go with that one too, but
No, I'm between Star Wars and Star Trek. It'd be fun to say Star Trek just because I grew, just numerically there was much more Star Trek.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
And so it was, you just ate all those alive. And I remember falling asleep to the DVD sounds of Star Trek Generation, which was like the warp core in the background. So that's like my ASMR is like the warp core. It just puts me right to sleep.
nice. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
Stargate too, though. Oh my God, yeah.
That was a great one to go back and rewatch during the pandemic. Go back and binge watching, sci-fi series that you hadn't watched, and the original SG-1, yes,
Oh, yeah.
but also Battlestar Galactica was another fun one. So, all right, interesting. Okay, here's our famous nerdy question that we love to ask all of our filmmakers. It's the one you're never asked and you're never prepared for. If you could have a superpower or a weapon from within the nerd universe to fight the forces of evil, what would you choose? And you can have more than one thing. All right, we're going to start with Gordon and Elizabeth. I got to hear your answer too.
I would want to be able to flip a switch where whoever I'm battling, I would look like just the most beautiful thing that whatever they're attracted to. So I could like seduce anything. That would be like that'd be cool.
All right. Kind of a new superhero.
Great.
The superhero seduce anything is the name of the superhero. It's good. It's good.
Elizabeth, how about you?
Give me a tricorder and a couple of powerful potions, and I'll be set.
Yeah.
All right, Stephanie, and you?
Oh, is there a superhero that does teleportation or time?
There's actually a lot, but that's always a good one.
Is Doctor Who does teleportate or time travel?
Yes, he's a Time Lord.
Yeah, I'll hop on his coattails.
You just want to be inside the TARDIS. I gotcha. And don't we all? I mean, Michael, how about you?
Well, I don't know if this exists in another like sci-fi or something, but it sort of exists in real life. But the ability to snap it on is like to get that, to be able to induce in somebody that moment when they're on like some drug like Molly's or something like that, where they go, oh, the world opens up and they can really hear what you're telling them, and it's like, you're right. We do need to attack the Borg by biting their ankles. You know that?
No,
That's
that's
my
a good one.
superhero.
That's also Limitless, where you take the pill and it opens up your brain and you can do all sorts of things. But I'd love to be able to apply that, into like a more of a nerd like universe or whatever. I mean, that'd be funny to have a Star Trek captain. I've got this, takes a potion and all of a sudden, he's like Data. I think that would be a good one. And by the way, we did earlier, was it earlier this year or last year? We did have the definitive answer on the best Star Trek, and we had a chance to interview Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he settled the debate for everybody. He's just plainly said it was Kirk.
Oh, he was just going on what captain? Well, that's still his opinion, man.
I know. But we had a chance to interview him, and we were like, well, you're always talking as the leading scientists, we want, and talking about Star Trek technology, who is the best captain? And his answer is really absolutely incredible. And it's like, well, I kind of give you that, but I'm like you, I grew up with Next Generation. So Jean-Luc Picard, and I really loved Picard as a series, not season 2, because I don't know what they were doing with that, but season 1 and 3.
No, he's got to give me some Janeway too.
Absolutely. So, well, thank you very much. I know we've got a little bit more time, but I've actually got to run, despite technical difficulties. But I just wanted to say this, again, a really unique and interesting premise. And everybody did a great, fantastic job in this movie. Very much enjoyed it. So, and I definitely want to see Stephanie in more like alien, demon-like makeup, because you did a great job on that. Welcome back to the studio at That Nerd Show. Marcus Blake, and we are speaking with the star of Wild-Eyed and Wicked, Molly Kunz. So, Molly, thank you for joining us today and interviewing with us. You are the second half of this interview with the rest of the cast. So, we loved this film. It was very interesting. Folklore come to life. How did this movie come to you? What made you choose this role?
It came to me through a friend of a friend. Said, hey, my friend's doing this movie. It occurs to me that maybe you might be a good fit for the lead. Do you want me to send you the script? And I was like, yeah. Read it, and I was just floored, and I loved it. It was so unexpected, and I loved the way that Lily was written.
Yeah.
She's so smart, and she's such a fighter, and she's and she's complicated too. She's like prickly and
right
and angry and hurt, but she's also really trying to do her best and trying to love people and trying to find her way to a better life. And sure. I think, just her complexity and being able to see a hero that way was really cool.
The best stories are always complex. there's no complexity, then it's boring. So, but we talked about, and when I was talking about with Stephanie and Michael and your director earlier this week, this is a great metaphor for really literally having to fight your own inner demons.
Yes.
Come to life. And it's not every day that you kind of have this portrayal of, again, folklore, coming to life and having to enter into a fantasy world. One of the things that kind of interested me is it's kind of ambiguous. Is it really real? Did she really do all this? Is this how she's perceiving having to overcome everything? So I'm curious to know what your opinion on that is.
My opinion on if she actually is like,
Yeah.
So I think, does it like physically exist?
Yeah.
No.
Ooh.
And that's my take. I don't know if Gordon agrees.
Right.
But I think it's akin to like a fever dream type of thing. It's
Yeah.
The metaphor is what's important. And
Right.
I think it's so cool the physical manifestation, even though I don't think that like the demon physically manifested itself.
Sure.
Our trauma does physically manifest.
Yeah.
It's just inside. It's just in our bodies. It's the breakdown of all of our systems.
There is definitely a physical response to dealing with trauma.
Yes.
It's not just emotional and how you deal with it. I think that's an interesting notion that it's a fever dream. So have you had throughout your career so far a chance to really do like combat before? I haven't seen everything you've been in, so it seems like this might be kind of new. You did a great job. That's not where I was getting at, but not at all.
Seems like you were an amateur.
Yeah. No. Wow, that really did come out. Okay, we're going to do take 2 on that. No, I wanted to get to training more than anything else.
Yeah.
Getting to do a role where you get to physically train with weapons and everything. Talk about that process.
It was really cool. And I have played, I've played characters that I've played a firefighter, kind of suited up for that. And I've played a Marine.
Sure.
But I've never had the combat. That was new. And like, I had never done, I had broadsword training before we started shooting the film, and I had some fencing lessons. And I also had on my own done kind of like strength training and resistance training to try to prepare myself for the physical challenge that I knew it was going to be. And I don't really play, like, I've never had to suit up in armor for a role. I've never had to wear 40 pounds of chainmail and armor, and then on top of it have the sword and the shield and the weight of all of that, and trying to move. Like, I had all the training. I learned the choreography for the fight sequences with this, with a prop sword and a prop shield, but I wasn't in the armor. And you have to, like, I'm a dancer, so I know about getting the choreography in your body, and you can learn the moves, and you can have the muscle memory, but it's an entirely different thing when you put the armor on and you're like, it feels like you're a toddler who hasn't, or like, a puppy who like hasn't.
Do you feel like some of the best roles are the ones where you really get to kind of train, like in combat and things like that, something new that you've never learned before?
Yeah. I love that. I mean, it's so fun. You get all these new skills, you get all this knowledge that you would never have come across. Like, I would never have just taken up broadsword training as a thing. And
I always love interviews with actors where they talk about, the training and stuff. Like Mark Hamill has always talked about all the physical training he had to go through with the original Star Wars trilogy and just hours on day of learning how to do everything. And I think that I've always found it fascinating that I feel like that's just more fun than, being a lawyer and being courtroom dramas and stuff like that.
Yeah, I
So-
agree.
Now, do you
Hands
feel,
on.
after this, you feel like you're ready for a fantasy, something like Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, ready to go?
I would love that. Yeah, that would be so much fun. I mean, I do love it's almost why I feel inclined to say like I'm not necessarily someone who watches a lot of action movies,
Right.
but I'm like, I think it'd be fun to be a part of one because think of all the fun stuff you get to learn. And, it's acting is also a physical discipline. It's like you really immerse yourself in what you're doing and who you're playing. And so I think that'd be fun. Also, I've already worked with wolves, so Game of Thrones would be perfect.
Yeah, quick funny story. I did love The Wolf and the Lion. I watched that with my niece and nephew when it came out, when we reviewed it, and that was great movie. Kind of a mistake on my part because I had to explain to them why their uncle was crying, and I'm like, look, I don't do well with animal movies. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm still traumatized by Benji the Hunted, but
Yeah,
we all loved it. And yeah, I can totally understand, getting to work with wolves. So yeah.
yeah,
Ready for
yeah.
it now.
I mean, that was another experience that like I spent years with those animals and being immersed in that. And again, something I never thought I would do. I never thought I would have an experience where I'm raising lions and
Right.
wolves. Yeah.
So folklore mythology. I don't know if you've ever studied it before or have a background with it or whatever. Did you come out of this movie, learning a lot more than what you had knew before you went in about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I did. I definitely learned more than I expected to. It wasn't a huge part of my like character work because
Right.
Lily, it's mostly the reason she's interested is mostly to connect with her mother.
Sure.
It isn't an especial fascination of hers per se. I think that
Right.
it's more like this makes me feel being a part of this and hearing about this makes me feel like I can replace a piece that I lost when I lost my
Yeah.
mom. Yeah.
Do you consider, I mean, I know that, genre, it's going to be fantasy folklore, but do you consider this film more of a family drama because of the family trauma that's within the story?
I think for me, that was the heartbeat of it. Like that was what I felt I wanted to prioritize when I was creating, Lily's world and her emotional world. Like, I think that was every decision she makes is coming from what is she trying to heal or fix
Yeah.
in those relationships. But yeah, I mean, it's so much more than that too.
So one of the things we were talking about with Stephanie the other day was makeup. So I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked her. Would you rather learn wear more armor, or would you rather fantastic makeup in a movie?
Ooh.
Do you have a preference?
Um,
Because the makeup was incredible, and she talked about how she had a lot of fun with it.
It was so cool. It was so cool to see that come together and like, but I wouldn't trade my experience with the armor.
I know.
I would have to choose that. It was so badass. So
I think that's the great thing about doing different kinds of roles because of the different kinds of experiences that you get, and getting out of just being typecast, doing everything. I mean, so anyway, I have this theory that the reason Tom Cruise does all the things that he does is he just wants to learn something new. It's like a, continuing education for him in the movies, which
I think that's a great theory. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, we got time for one last question. It's our famous nerdy question that we ask all of our filmmakers. And I guarantee you it's the one you're not prepared for.
Oh,
All
boy.
right, so here we go.
Okay.
If you could have a superpower or some kind of weapon from within the nerd universe to fight the forces of evil, what would you choose? And you can have more than one.
I mean, I think I would want the Force from Star Wars.
Hey, don't let
right?
any of this influence you, but
Look, I know how to play to my audience.
right.
I mean, but probably also that would be up there. Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I'm like, just give me the Force. Okay. Let that be true, and let me learn the skill of building my own lightsaber. If Star Trek technology can start to become true, can that become true?
Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah, please.
all right. One last thing. Where are you off to next? You got another project you'd like to quickly plug?
Yeah, I'm actually up here right now in Vancouver filming season 2 of The Irrational on NBC.
Oh,
And that will be premiering this fall on NBC, Tuesday nights at 10 p.m.
I'm going to let my assistant editor know. She's the one that has really gotten into that show with our staff. So,
Oh, yeah.
awesome.
Well, great.